Boy, I'm sure glad that the all-new, all-different Marvel is wrapping up. I mean, I could not take talking about that many new books for that long. Whew! I really hope that no other company decides to do a massive reboot right after. You guys already know the punchline to this, don't you? You already know where I'm going with. Just put up the banner. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professional Authority, your guide to all things geeky, and this is Comic Class, the show every single Wednesday where we just geek out about comic books, and I've been getting asked for weeks now on Twitter, on Tumblr, on YouTube. I've been getting asked everywhere to talk about Rebirth, and I haven't really wanted to, simply because I didn't want to go out there and speculate about what this could be. And you might be saying, well, hey, when Marvel did their big relaunch thing, you were speculating immediately. That's because Marvel will talk about stuff and tease stuff 6 to 8 months in advance. DC teases stuff a week before it comes out in solicitation. So I was like, trust me, we're about to hear everything we want to know about. And yes, now we know that this is going to be some kind of a semi-reboot. It's not an official reboot. They're not completely relaunching the DC universe. However, it is a return to their roots. And what this could mean is that it could change up some of the continuity that we've seen in the New 52. A lot of characters are going to change completely from the way they've been acting. But aside from that, we don't really know much. However, I am here today to talk about all the things that we do know, and I'm going to divide into the good and to the bad. And the good will be represented by classic Superman, and the bad will be represented by electric blue Superman. I think that's fairly simple. Now, the good thing about this, and the thing that has me the most excited about this and the most optimistic about it, is the video that Geoff Johns made introducing it. By the way, I'm just gonna say right now, I don't know if it's Johns or Jones. I always said Johns, then someone told me it was Jones, and then I was like, I don't think that's right, and then I started saying Jones, and people told me it was Johns, so I don't know what it is. I'm just gonna say Johns, because I like Martian Manhunter. There. So anyway, the thing that has me the most optimistic about this is that video that Geoff Johns made, in which he came out and he said, listen, recently we've been straying from where we've been, and this is going to be a return to what made DC Comics great. We're going to be going back and focusing on all the stuff that defined these characters, and he brought up Green Lantern Rebirth as an example, and then Flash Rebirth as an example, which were two series that he worked on that brought Hal Jordan and Barry Allen back. And I'll admit, Flash Rebirth I liked, but it didn't really make me like Barry Allen all that much. It made me like Wally West all that much more. Because if you read Flash Rebirth, Wally was kind of the star of that. Because it was Barry's story, but it was nothing but Wally coming in and going, yeah, Barry, let me show you how this is done, alright? But Green Lantern Rebirth? I love that series, and I was 100% opposed to the idea of Hal Jordan coming back, because I like for characters to have an ending, and I like the idea of legacy characters. I like the idea of the torch being passed on, so I was all for Kal Rayner. I wanted Kal Rayner to stay the sole Green Lantern. I did not want Hal Jordan to come back, and yet that series was so good and explained to us why Hal Jordan was such a great character, and yet still treated all these new Green Lanterns with such respect that it made me go, this is exactly what this should be. This is how bringing an old character back should be. And this makes me realize why not only Hal Jordan is great, but Green Lantern in general is great. And Geoff Johns is kind of that guy for DC. He's that guy who knows what makes their characters great. This guy bleeds DC Comics. He knows every single one of these characters and what makes them work. So when he said that they were going to do for their entire universe what they did for Hal and Barry in their Rebirth series, it got me excited because, yeah, that's kind of what the DC Comics universe needs right now. It needs something that reminds us of why this universe is great, of what makes this universe work. And the New 52 kind of was a spit in the face to all of that. The New 52 kind of came in and went, what makes this universe so great? Legacy characters, they're gone. A history, it's gone. Friendships between characters, they're gone. A bright, hopeful world that embraces superheroes, that's gone. It got rid of everything that made the DC Comics universe what it was. It was basically Wildstorm. And I'm not just saying that because Jim Lee was one of the defining creators of the New 52. I'm saying that because Jim Lee tried to hold on to Wildstorm for so long and fought so hard to make it cool and tried to bring it back time and time again that when I saw the New 52, I could tell it was basically Jim Lee coming in going, oh, you guys aren't going to read Wildstorm? Guess what? All of DC Comics is Wildstorm now. And that's kind of the exact reason why they need to do a relaunch like this. They need to do this rebirth because, yeah, you basically took all those diehard DC fans and told them everything you like doesn't mean anything to us anymore. I don't just mean the stories, I mean the defining principles that you held on to about this world are now gone. They don't exist anymore because this guy whose sense of style and sense of what's cool is firmly planted in the 90s is gonna come in here and tell you what all the kids like. That's basically what it was. The New 52 was Jim Lee, the guy who wanted to make everything Wildstorm, Dan DiDio, the guy who wanted to kill Nightwing because he didn't understand why girls liked him, and Bob Harras, the guy whose claim to fame was writing the Clone Saga over at Marvel. I kid you not, that's the guy they made editor-in-chief of DC Comics. It was those three guys coming in and going, we know what all the kids like. We know what's gonna be popular out there. We know what the sense of style is with heroes. We know what everyone wants to read when they clearly did not. And I'm not just saying this to badmouth the New 52. I would do that for free. I'm saying this because when you work in the entertainment industry, I'm sorry, we f***ed up is the hardest sentence to ever say. You're not allowed to say that. You say that, you're fired because no one in the entertainment industry is ever allowed to admit that they made a mistake. But when Jeff Johns made the video where he introduced Rebirth, and he was saying, we've strayed away from what made these characters great, we're going to get back to that, we're going to return to defining what made these characters work, and the first words of this big Rebirth event is a faceless narrator saying, I love this world, but something's missing. That was a very veiled apology. That was him coming in and saying, I know the New 52 did not work. And honestly, that's the number one biggest thing that makes me excited about this Rebirth. It's that message that he was giving in that video was basically him saying, we should never have tried to be something we weren't. I realize what we did was wrong. We should not have tried to be Wildstorm. We should try to have been DC Comics. And as I said, Jeff Johns is hands down the best guy to design a DC Comics universe. That guy understands these characters. His Superman Secret Origin, one of the best Superman series I've ever read. His Flash with Wally West, easily my favorite Flash series. His Hal Jordan Green Lantern Rebirth and all the Green Lantern stuff that followed it, no one even comes close to topping that Green Lantern storyline. That's one of the best runs on a character ever. And I know what everybody's going to say. Yeah, but wasn't he also one of the guys who helped design the New 52? And didn't he also write some stuff during that? Listen, he designed the New 52. It was those three other guys I mentioned who were in control of it, and they just kept him on a leash the whole time. They dragged him out there whenever they wanted to go, see, we got some DC cred right here, yeah, see? And then they shoved him back into the closet because that dude never got to do anything that he wanted to, all right? They kept him so restrained because they wanted him to be their TV guy. They wanted him to be the guy in connection with their entertainment department. Which, in all fairness, is probably the reason why the Flash TV series is so good right now, because Jeff Johns is working with them on that. But they would also come in and say, yeah, but you can only write 2 comics. He wanted to write more, and they would shut it down. Like I said, his Green Lantern series, one of the best Green Lantern series I've ever read. And they came in and said, wrap it up, B, wrap it up. They told him to end it prematurely because they needed him to go and do other work for them. And also probably the worst stuff that he has written over at DC was that early Justice League stuff that he was writing for the New 52, that he was writing with Jim Lee. Go and look at everything Jim Lee has done, and then go and look at everything that Jeff Johns has done, and then go and look at that first 12-issue arc on Justice League that the two of them did. Who does that remind you of more? Yeah, they just put his name on there and they told him what to write. He put in there dialogue, and that's the most influence he had on that first story arc. But now, not only is Jeff Johns coming out and saying, okay, here's our plan for Rebirth, he's also coming out and saying, and I have been in personal connection with every single one of these creative teams to help them define what these characters are going to be. That, right there, you've got the guy who understands DC Comics coming in and going, here's the vision, and working with each of them. That is the second thing that has me the most excited about this, is that Geoff Johns is giving his personal touch to all these characters. That is excellent, because like I said, who gave his personal touch to everyone in the New 52? It was Jim Lee. He was the chief creative guy behind the New 52. He's the one who redesigned all those characters and decided to just add lines and shoulder pads to all of them. Like I said, I'm not insulting Jim Lee as an artist. He is a very talented artist. However, what he thinks is cool and his sense of style is just firmly planted in the 90s. And that is where it stayed. So all of his designs, they just made me think, are you just desperate to draw Cyber Wars again? Cyber Force, that's what it was, Cyber Force. How could I ever have forgotten such a memorable series? But like I said, he is a talented artist, and they are going to put him on a big book. He is actually going to be drawing Suicide Squad, so hooray for them on that. Hooray, good call, putting him on that book. His sense of style and art does actually work for a book like that. However, he is not designing anyone. I have not heard any word that he will be designing anybody's costumes or giving anybody a fresh coat of paint. The only book out there that he is going to be given the Chief Creative Designer title on is Scooby-Doo. This has to be punishment. Doesn't it seem like that? Doesn't it seem like this is the DC Comics equivalent of the Phantom Zone? That this is what they do in their business when you just screw up that royally? It's like, alright, you want to design characters? Cool. Go to Scooby-Doo. So those are the two things that have me the most excited and the most optimistic about this relaunch. The fact that they seem to actually understand what they did wrong the last time, and they're putting in charge of this someone who actually seems to understand this universe and what makes it great. That has me incredibly hopeful for this relaunch. Let's get into the negatives. The first negative, 32 books. That's it? Only 32 books? I counted. Marvel in May is going to have over 70 books coming out. Now I will say though that I do think it's great that they're actually having a lot of these books be bi-weekly, because this whole one book a month thing that they've been doing, listen, I understand the appeal of that, because then it makes it easier for people to go, oh, it's the second week of the month? Well, here's what books are coming out. Except that doesn't really work once one of those books gets delayed, and then delayed again, and then another book will get delayed, and eventually your schedule doesn't really mean anything. But also, we live in a day and age where comic books no longer compete with other comic books. Comic books are now seen as a legitimate form of entertainment, so now you're not competing against just other books that are also coming out once a month. You are now competing against TV shows, web series, movies, podcasts, anything else that you can think of, and these are all things that come out constantly, at least once a week. You have to be able to match that, and I fully understand that you can't put out a brand new issue of every single one of these books every single week. However, making someone wait 30 days for 20 more pages, that's nuts. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. That's why I like Marvel's system. Marvel's system is, there is no system. Is the book done? It's out. Is it ready? Put it on the truck. And now, this, having them come out every other week, excellent. That kind of makes up for there only being 32 books. However, there is another problem with that, and that is the lack of variety. I mean, out of these 32 books, 15 of them will have to do with either Batman or Superman. Automatically, half of your relaunch is already dedicated to just two characters. The great thing about Marvel and what they're doing right now is that they realize, hey, we want to appeal to every audience out there. The comic book industry has a wide audience at the moment, and you can't do that with just a set number of books, especially when you have to set aside a certain number of those books for your main core characters, the ones that everybody wants to read about. You have to set that aside, but then you have to keep putting out their other series to appeal to that entire wide audience. And I've mentioned this numerous times on my channel, but representation in media is so important. It's important to put out their characters who actually reflect the world that is going to buy this book. It is important to put out their characters who don't all just look like me. It is important to have characters that reflect every single person out there, especially in an industry that focuses on creating heroes. And I have been so happy to see that the comic book industry over the past couple years has actually been far more progressive than I think pretty much every single other form of media out there. And that's one of the great things about Marvel Comics having 70 books out there, is that if they have 70 books out there, odds are there is going to be a character in one of those books who represents you. Odds are, no matter who you are, you can walk into a comic book store and there will be a book there that you go, oh, that person represents me, and that's awesome. I am so happy to see that. And yet, like I said, DC, 32 books. They're cutting that way down, and when you do that, it kind of hurts your ability to represent your audience. I mean, out of 32 books, only 7 of them are going to star female characters. Now, that's not to say there won't be female characters on certain team books, but we've got Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Batgirl and the Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, Gotham Academy, Supergirl, and Superwoman. That's it. And it's even worse for people of color because you're going to have Cyborg, Gotham Academy, and then maybe Jon Stewart in Green Lanterns, and maybe Jaime Reyes in Blue Beetle. That's it. Unless that this whole Rebirth thing is actually a full-on relaunch. I don't think it will be. But if they do go back and fully reboot this would be an awesome opportunity to come in there and actually go, okay, a couple of those favorite characters that you had, we're changing them around. We are actually going to make them represent the world better. I don't think they're going to do that, but it's, there's a small possibility, maybe. They're not doing it. However, the reason why I'm not more upset about this is simply because I think that at the moment, this is just a phase 1 thing. And I think that they are going to expand and focus on a wider range of characters once this is a success, because if you look at the series that they've been putting out recently, pretty much the only series that have actually sold are the ones that are getting relaunched. Everything else that is not getting a relaunch hasn't sold. I mean, if they weren't going to do this relaunch, they were going to have to cancel about 12 books anyways in the upcoming months. So if I had to take a guess, I would say that with these 32 books, this is simply them coming in and going, guys, listen, we've lost our way. We clearly did not know what we were doing with New 52. We're going to come in and make sure that we get these characters right. These are the characters that people know from DC Comics, so we're going to make sure that we get them right, and then we're going to go and get all the other characters right. Again, I can't guarantee that's what they're going to do. It's just my best case scenario at the moment. Now, my other big concern with this is simply how late in the game they're actually talking about this. How late it took them to actually announce what the heck they're doing. Because, don't get me wrong, ending their books at number 52, it seems appropriate. I mean, this is the farewell to the New 52, so ending all their books at issue 52 actually does make a lot of sense. However, like I said, Marvel will announce their stuff months in advance, like 6-8 months in advance. DC announced this thing about 2 weeks before the solicitations would have come out and revealed it to us anyways. And the reason why this makes me nervous, because I know that a lot of people out there are thinking right now, it's like, oh, well, why spoil the surprise earlier? Why not wait until the last minute to tell us anyway so that the surprise would be even bigger? The reason why this makes me nervous is because this gives me flashbacks of Flashpoint. Now, for any of you who don't know, Flashpoint was the 6-issue storyline that led into the big relaunch of DC Comics as the New 52. Why does that make me nervous? Because when Flashpoint began at issue 1, that is not what they were planning on doing at issue 6. They literally had to hit the emergency relaunch button halfway through that storyline because Warner Brothers owns DC Comics, just like Disney owns Marvel. Except If Marvel suddenly started not doing so well, Disney would rush in and go, I'm sorry, is something that we own not making money? That ain't gonna happen. Let's retool this. We're gonna work with you to make sure this works. Warner Brothers don't give a f***. If DC Comics was not succeeding and wasn't doing well enough, Warner Brothers would have just sold them. They would have kept the rights to all their movie characters and then just kicked the comic industry to the curb, gone, you're on your own. And there are many people who left DC Comics after the New 52 came around that said, yeah, that's exactly what was about to happen. Warner Brothers was talking about selling them, about getting rid of them, and that made them nervous. That's why they got so desperate that halfway through that storyline, they had to hit the relaunch button because it was the only way that they could get their sales up. And this makes me nervous because if you'll notice when you started reading the New 52, you went, none of these things match up. There doesn't seem to be any linked continuity here. None of the writers seem to know what's happening in the other books. That's because no one did. It's because they had to jump in and quickly plan all this stuff in 3 months. And again, this is not me being a conspiracy theorist. There were many people who left DC Comics when the New 52 came around and went, we actually had books planned after Flashpoint. That was still set in that old universe. There was no talk of a New 52. I know that Nick Spencer had a Young Justice series planned. Jeff Johns came out and said, yeah, there was going to be a Flashpoint book coming out afterwards that focused on Bart Allen and Wally West. And David Aja said, yeah, I was going to do covers for a Suicide Squad book, and it was not the New 52 one. It was definitely set in the old universe. And the reason why this makes me nervous is because if you look at the sales on comic books, DC right now is in the exact same position that it was when it had to hit that relaunch button the first time. In fact, it's in an even worse position. DC Comics is literally the only company that since they did the New 52 has actually dropped in sales. Its sales right now are actually lower than where they were when they had to hit the big relaunch button, and that would be bad if everyone was suffering, except that currently every single other comic book company out there has had their sales skyrocket in those past 4 years. And I know that there are a lot of fans of the New 52 who are hating me right now because I've been doing nothing but bad-mouthing these books this entire time. However, you have to admit, they're not selling. They stopped selling a long time ago. And I know a lot of DC fans out there who don't want to face that fact. In fact, I even work with a die-hard DC fan, and when Marvel announced they were doing the all-new, all-different Marvel relaunch, he actually said to me, yeah man, it's a good thing Marvel's doing this, because they are way behind in the sales. Whew, DC beats them every single week. And I had to kind of like just look up at him like, I don't think that's true. And he goes, yeah man, look it up. DC beats them every single month. And I was like, okay, you understand that we live in a day and age in which I have infinite information in my pocket, right? And I just pulled out my phone, brought up the sales figures for last month, and I went, dude, DC had 23% of the market, Marvel had 42%. And we just kept scrolling back month after month after month, and every single month, DC didn't just lose, they got trounced by Marvel. And yeah, if I was the guys working at DC, I would look at that and be really nervous. I mean, we all remember that news story about how DC lost $2 million last year, and they came out and they said, oh, well, you know, it's just because we had to move. I'm sorry, did you have your building airlifted out to California? That move did not cost you $2 million, all right? Business is bad for you right now. So yeah, I would absolutely be looking to hit that big reboot button if I was DC right now. But that's exactly what makes me nervous, is that the last time that they did it so far into the last minute that nothing was planned. And this time around, like I said, Jeff Johns, if anybody is going to already have his plan for the perfect DC Comics mapped out in his head, it's going to be that dude. But again, this is being announced so late in the game, it makes me nervous that things won't be fully thought out. Now, I don't want to go out on negative, and that's why I've been saving one last positive for the end of this video. And my final positive is that they will be changing the creative teams on these books. DC has a ton of great writers working for them. They just don't always know which books to put them on or which books they should be publishing. To prove my point, Supergirl, massive success. One of the biggest premieres CBS has ever had. Arrow has a die-hard audience that will stick with that show and that character forever. Flash, the biggest superhero TV show of all time. Not only has Supergirl not had a book in almost a year now, but without looking it up, Green Arrow and Flash, off the top of your head, who's writing those books? Don't look it up, don't go on Wikipedia. No, do this from memory. Give up? There's a reason for that. I guarantee you, maybe 5 of you got that. These are some of their biggest characters, and yet they don't have their biggest creators working on them. And part of the reason for that is because they just don't have the money to spend on them anymore. However, I complained about them going down to only 32 books, but when they cut their books down to only 32, they can afford some bigger name writers. They can afford to have those big name writers work on their big name characters, and they can afford to have them put out 2 copies of that book every single month. This could be the opportunity to really make their books shine again and make people realize, oh right, that's why I love these characters. That's why these are the biggest books out there. If they can increase the talent on Flash, on Green Arrow, if they can put some really big names on Supergirl, it will make people come to the stores and buy these books for reasons other than, hey, I like their TV show. So okay, that's about all the news that I have to report on this, simply because that's about all the news that's been revealed about this so far. However, as more news comes out about this, I am going to make more update videos about it, and also I'm going to make some fun geeky videos, you know, just things like, hey, if I was relaunching the DC Universe, here's what I would do. And then you guys can come in and tell me in the comments what a dumb idea that is. Just like I told DC Comics what a dumb idea the New 52 is. It'll be your chance for revenge. Everybody loves revenge, right? But I'm also going to come in here, and just like I did with the all-new, all-different Marvel relaunch, I will come in and do reviews of all these new DC books. So if you want to see any of that stuff, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, then make sure that you share it around the web. It is the best way to help out this channel, and I appreciate every single person out there who has been doing it. And if you want to see some more DC Comics stuff from me, then I'll have some videos at the end of this. Thank you very much for tuning in, and come back next time.